Well, hello, and welcome to another podcast. Actually, not a podcast, another webinar. I do podcasts, but another webinar in the series. And today it's all about having a new career path. And I often get asked the questions about how to test the waters. Who am I? I'm Greg Weiss, and I am the founder and director and head coach of Career 365. And I'm delighted to be here today to be able to talk to you about testing the waters. It's a very, very good question to be asked. And I thought I'll give you a little bit of context about how this came about. So let me just get into this a little bit here. I'm, again, probably the easiest place for me to be doing this is working from home. I do have new office facilities, but they are actually closing down for the next 3 odd weeks as we enter the summer vacation period in Australia. So let me just get into the presentation here. I've got a little bit of housekeeping. I can hear somebody saying that they can hear me, which is great. If I can get other thumbs up, fantastic. But why don't we get into it? And whilst we're doing a little bit of housekeeping, and oops, I've actually loaded the wrong presentation. Here we go. Let me just stop that one here. This is going live, people. So here we are, main presentation deck, and here we go. That's it. That's the correct one. Okay, now, these are my contact details, and you can see my latest books here, which is all around career success, career clarity, and the last one here is career networking. Let me explain to you actually about how these all work in sequence before we get into things. The career clarity book is actually about what is it that you want to be able to learn. It's the middle one here. What is it you're going to be doing to work out what your next steps are? The career networking one is the second one in the series, and that's to do with not just relying on recruiters. And the third one is the career success. So it's not exactly in this order, but it's all, and career success is all about how to beat your probation period. I'm very proud of the books that we've got here. You've got content to a lot of the, got access to a lot of the content through your program, but not this one here. This is actually career success, and it's about employee onboarding. So in the event that you do get onboarded within a time frame that you've got your outplacement program, we can always flip you into the career success side of things, the onboarding piece. And if you've actually, if you'd like to have that any case as an extra, just let me know through my email and LinkedIn. Okay, so how do we get there? What's today going to look like? Just want to take you through these bullet points here. Checking your assumptions, how to have prototype conversations. You might not know what they are, but we're going to talk about those. How to immerse yourself in an industry to see if it holds your interest, and why you should seek mentorship. Okay, so let me just tell you a little bit about how this came about today, and that is I was coaching somebody, quite an experienced person in their profession, and they really are at the point where after 16, 17 years in the one job, in the one company, one organization, several jobs actually, but in the last several years they've had one particular role and they've specialized in a particular area. What they wanted to do is to know what would be like if they either continued in the same role, which they really didn't want to do, or alternatively, what they would do is they would actually work out what it is they want to do next. And they've gone through our program to work out what their SLIM Pact is, SLIMPACT. And if you don't know what that is, that's actually our pathway, our model, our proprietary model on helping people work out what their career enriched spot is. As a participant in the program, you'd actually have a pretty good idea about what that's all about, and And you could come to some choices having worked out what your slim packed, your career enriched spot actually is. And sometimes we get people who might come down to 2 or 3 different options. And the whole idea is then to think, well, what is it that they want to do next? Some people might go boots and all into one. But we actually recommend that what you do is you test the waters. And that's actually what the context of this was. So at the moment, I've got this person talking to an allied institution about what they could actually be doing. When I say institution is, I guess it's a bit of a clue. They are in the educational space. And so that's why I use the word institution. But I've also encouraged them to get together with some people who are experts in the area and just to sit down and find out what it's like in the event that they might want to pivot. Now, you can actually watch this webinar, or you can later on in the context of some previous webinars that I've put on in the previous weeks to do with Slim Pack, to do with rededicating, pivoting, relaunching. You'll see those. Those there. Slim Pact has been posted up in the chat window by Sarah. So thanks, Sarah, for that. And it's just a quick little précis of that. And she has also put in a link for where you can buy those books as well. So what I want to do is I want to take you through what this is all about. I think I'll get you focused in on the slides rather than me. So I'm going to turn me off a little bit around that. But before we get into prototype conversations, let me just say that, deciding which career path to pursue can be quite difficult. It's difficult to stay true to your motivations without succumbing to your natural weaknesses, as in the case with many. So it's not difficult to second guess yourself. It's difficult to conceive of putting your time and energy into something that may not work out as expected. But what you can do is to implement some very effective testing techniques to move yourself forward with your decision confidently and with eyes wide open. So the first of those techniques is the prototype conversation. And in this slide, we say, ask the person with experience in that area or already doing what you're contemplating to sit down over a coffee and share their story. Let me dive a little bit more deeply into this concept. Sometimes the best way to find out what you believe to be true about a job or an industry is actually true. So to test your assumptions is to talk to someone already living the life that you think you'd like to have. So I got this term prototype conversations from some people called Burnett and Evans. And what are prototype conversations? These are where you actually ask the person with experience in that area or doing what you're contemplating to sit down over a coffee and share their story. And this is not set up to be an into the industry or to find out if they can get you a job. It's not about you at all. I want to emphasize this. It's not about you at all. The story you're after is the personal story of how that person got to be doing that thing that they do, or got the expertise that they got, and what it's really like to do what they do. It's an opportunity to find out what they do and don't like about the position, what surprised them about it when they started, and how they actually found themselves getting there. So that means that that your part in the conversation is to ask questions, not to talk about yourself. It's like an interview in this way, but your only stake in the discussion is to gather as much useful information as possible. Let me repeat that. It's to gather as much useful information as possible. So I'm a huge believer in when you need more information, you just sit down with someone directly and find it out. No amount of Google searches or emails will substitute for these prototype conversations. Don't stop at one either, because everybody's experience is different and you want a fuller picture of your potential job before you might dive in. So try to have as many prototype conversations as you possibly can. However, you can certainly supplement your prototype conversation with some general industry knowledge itself. So that's what a prototype conversation is all about. What would be industry knowledge, as I've just been saying, and that is this slide talks about learning more about the industry you're considering by joining by turning into these bullet points here. Let's deeper dive into what I mean by that. And so when you love what you do for work, it's natural to become immersed in the industry and to want to do so. So instead of waiting until you start work to see if this happens for you, why not jump right in and see if being immersed in the industry excites you now? Now, there are some authors of a book called The New Rules of Work, and they suggest learning more about the industry you're considering joining by turning to those bullet points that I've got there. That's industry blogs, newsletters, conferences, events, and podcasts. And if there are a few players you're hoping to find employment with, look for company-specific publications about them and start following industry leaders on social media like LinkedIn to learn about the issues that they have attention right now. Now, you'll find actually that with LinkedIn, you'll find that it's quite easy to, if you follow a particular company page, or a particular group, it's quite easy, say, if on a company page, to actually look at what they're posting up and some of the main wins and issues that they're facing. They'll often won't talk about necessarily their struggles, but they will talk about the issues that they are facing and how they've gone to resolve those. And then you've got these groups that you can follow as well in LinkedIn, and they are ones that'll probably be a little bit more transparent about the sort of issues that they've got. Now, so if you look at these industry blogs, newsletters, conferences, events, podcasts, and the like, by looking at social media and so on and so forth, if you do this before you actively pursue a position, you'll enjoy the benefits of identifying holes in your knowledge about an industry. You might even be able to identify specific areas or issues that you already know how to add value to or can make a focus of your learning. You'll perform better in the job application and interview process, and you'll be, most importantly right now, you'll get a better feel if this is a wise path for you to pursue. So again, that book is The New Rules of Work. I got that from there, but it's not rocket science to look at these particular areas and think about these sorts of things, which is all these areas here that you want to check out. Okay, so not that great with my whiteboard skills, but hopefully I've circled that well enough for you. Okay, what's the next one? That's seeking mentorship. So it's taking the prototype conversations to another level where you might seek mentorship. So I went for a walk the other day with somebody who has a mentor who's really helped them through the particular industry in which they are in. They are in the human resources profession. I honestly wish I would have had more mentors in my life. So if you can seek out mentors and people who are just going to be doing things for the sake of mentoring, it's great. There are professional mentors out there, and it's different to coaching. So let's get into this a little bit and talk about mentorship. And so taking prototype conversations to the next level, you need to seek mentorship. I don't suggest that you reach into each prototype conversation for the purpose of finding out if they would be a suitable and willing mentor, but it can be a convenient progression in the right circumstances. Transitions are a particularly good time to seek out a mentor because it's helpful to get first-hand advice from someone who has walked the path that you intend to go on right now. So according to the guy that wrote the book Mastery, all these different mastery books, it might be the 42 Laws of Power. You might know the guy called it, I think it's Robert Greene. So according to Greene, he says that a mentor can offer support, confidence, direction, space to discover things on your own. They can gauge the extent of your progress, the weaknesses in your character, the ordeals that you must go through to advance. So if you're hesitant to pursue a new career on your own or want to give yourself the best chance of succeeding, a mentor can be very, very, very helpful. Now, there are a number of myths associated with mentorship, and of the Harvard Business Review, there's a lady called Amy Gallo, and she points out that there are several that they're worth taking note of it when considering mentorship. There are a number of points. One fallacy is that you need the perfect mentor. Well, you actually don't. You may be lucky enough to have the opportunity to turn to several people for advice. If you do, Amy Gallo says, you should take advantage of that. There's no reason to limit yourself to just one person. If anything, having a small network of mentors will give you a more well-rounded level of support as you work out if you're on the right path. So I'm curious if any of you have actually had a really good mentor. So the second is the second myth is that you and they need to be in it for the long haul. So Amy says that you may be wondering whether it's fair to seek mentorship if you're just testing the waters of a potential career path. But in today's fast-paced world, a long-term relationship can be unrealistic and a difficult time demand. Don't go into mentorship seeking a commitment from your mentor. Simply seek them out at the times you'd like their advice and let the relationship build from there. So that's a good tip from Amy from that side of things. And the third thing, which is worthwhile taking note of when considering mentorship, is the third one is it's all about you. Okay, and it can be difficult to ask someone to spare their time if there's nothing in it for them, and you certainly shouldn't expect that from them. Instead, look for ways you can provide them with value as well, so that it's not just a one-sided exchange. That's a good tip. So according to Gallo, even the promise of future help can be enough to convince a mentor to give up his or her time and energy. So what we've done here is we've seen industry immersion, we've looked at prototype conversations. These are what we're covering is testing the waters. So, and now we've done seeking mentorship, and we've just talked about those myths. So what about the psychology of choice? So this is again in the landscape of testing the waters. Whilst we're doing that, let me talk about waters. Let me just take a quick sip. I'm wetting my own whistle here, as they say. So in terms of the psychology of choice, I'm going to cover this ground of gut feeling, regret, and not your final decision. Some people find decision-making easier than others. I'm sure you've found that. And anxiety often accompanies making big decisions, like life decisions, like what you do for work. Luckily, there are a few tips that can help you move forward instead of being frozen with indecision. So the first one here is gut feeling. Use your gut feeling to make the final call. You know, you've worked hard in working out what it is that you actually want to do. Say if you've done the Slim Pact process, and again, Sarah's put up the link to Slim Pact itself. She's also, by the way, thank you, Sarah, you've actually put up links to the new rules of work, and also Robert Greene, we talked earlier about the 48 laws of power, etc. So you've got some resources here, which we could actually include, Sarah, I'd suggest we put it in the show notes as well. But in terms of using your gut to make the final call, let's assume you've gone through to that career enrich spot and you're thinking, okay, I've got a few choices. So you've weighed up different options against each other and considered the benefits of different paths. But if you're having trouble choosing between your final couple of options, and it's often the case if I find people trying to work that out, it's helpful to consider that intuitively, deep down, you know what you should do. Don't discredit your gut. When you test a path, you innately know what feels right and what doesn't. So go with it. So let me just share with you, I'm working with somebody who you might consider a bit sort of woo-woo or a little bit out there. So just full disclosure, I meditate and I have some guides when I meditate, et cetera, et cetera. And they talk about three, the current thinking is we just don't have one brain. We actually have three supposedly in our bodies. We have our brain between our ears. We actually have our heart, and then we actually have our gut. So there's no surprise in terms of, and by the way, gut often is a way that people work out things before the brain actually comes into play. So, thinking through things or overthinking things can often compensate for intuition, or what you call here gut feeling. So no surprise that your gut is considered to be a brain, like your heart around feelings, and like your brain in terms of thoughts and more rational thoughts. So I don't want to discourage you whatsoever about using that gut feeling. And I'm sure you've found times in your life when you've gone with your gut and it's actually worked pretty damn well, despite your head telling you something else. Okay, the second one is about regret. And so thinking of regret, although I usually advocate for focusing on the positive, if you can see yourself as being happy with each of, say, two options, sometimes considering regret is the right approach. So which of those two options, for example, if you had two, okay, which of these two options, if you didn't choose them, would leave you regretting that one of your highest values wasn't being fulfilled? So that's a really, really important point here. And that is that if you think about opportunity cost, if you think about, okay, what am I really going to absolutely just think, oh God, if only I would have done that. That's what I'm emphasizing at this particular point in time. What will you regret, rather than what will you go towards? What will you regret? So let me just think. Random thought here is Tony Robbins, who you'd be aware of, Awaken the Giant Within. So Anthony Robbins, Tony Robbins, and he talks about that there's a bigger motivation to avoid something than to go towards something. So if you will avoid pain far more motivated way than pursue pleasure. And that's what I want to be able to actually just sort of really emphasize around this whole regret concept is, what is it that you'll be quite pained about? And, if, in my life, honestly, if I'd actually thought about that more, I'd probably be doing would have made probably some very big different decisions. So the last one is about not your final decision. And take anxiety away and trust that whatever you decide to do right now about your career won't be for life. That's the beautiful thing about how we're living today. Even in unusual times where things are getting a little tighter and so on and so forth, the bottom line is that if you approach it like it's a game, if you approach it like a pilot, if you approach it like a test, that's why this webinar is called Testing the Waters. And so if it's not your final decision, won't be for life. After all, the very nature of this world, technology and life itself, which is ever changing with new opportunities present themselves along the way. So let me push this point really hard. 10 years ago, you know how many jobs there are in digital marketing and social media marketing and all that sort of stuff? 10 years ago, those jobs, a heck of a lot of those jobs have never, ever existed. Thinking about artificial intelligence, for argument's sake, I mean, this is the stuff of fantasies only a decade ago, and yet it's becoming significantly mainstream nowadays. So my point that I'm saying is, in all these things is, and this is what I want to make sure that you're doing, is really, really understanding this slide probably above all others, and that is that trust your gut. Remember, you've got three different brains: the brain between, your traditional brain between your ears, your heart about feelings, and your gut, and that's your intuition. Think about what I mentioned about regret, okay, the opportunity cost, the avoidance of something, the loss of something, is a far greater motivation than the attraction towards something. And then finally, you can play a game with it. Just realize that it's not your final decision. You may be in it for a year and say, well, that job's great, wrong company, or great company, wrong job, or both of them are just wrong, and then start again. It may seem inconvenient, but at the end of the day, what I'm asking you to do around the concept of career enrichment is to really feel great about your move, not just get another job. Okay, so that's what you wanted to be able to cover off. Let me just make sure that what we're doing is we're just going through this entire. I'm just going to resume, go backwards and just look at what we actually covered off. Okay, and that is that I talked about having prototype conversations. Okay, sit with people, have a cup of coffee with people who are already doing things that you want to do. Immerse yourself by getting some other information, just testing it out. Does this excite you? Does it bore you? How does it shift you out of looking at any of these resources here? Seeking mentorship, asking people who are already in this area to help you fast track and to guide you through as well. We talked through mentorship myths. Then we looked at the psychology of choice most recently. So here we are. We've got these 3 books in the correct order here. Career Clarity, Career Networking, Career Success. If you'd like to get those, please, in hard copy. More importantly, if you'd actually like to share the know-how that's in these books as a Christmas gift or as a gift to anybody who you think just maybe at certain crossroads, these are great gifts to be able to provide to people. I'm not plugging it just because I've written them. I'm very proud of the work. I'm plugging it because literally hundreds and thousands of people have gone through this course material, and it's just in a different version itself. Okay. Now, normally I round off these webinars with any questions for me, and because we're in a lag, I'm going to actually ask people just to send a chat. So I stream a little bit ahead of you hearing things. So I'll wait for you to be able to actually send me some stuff, some questions. So in terms of finding those books, Sarah's shared with you around the shop, the URL for this, which is great. So feel comfortable just to get those from there. And whilst I'm waiting on any questions, there's okay. So just getting some other links to the other books themselves, and Sarah will put those in the show notes. So a question that's come through is around the concept of regret, and one question is: would people regret the idea of jumping from one job to another, having tried something else? It's an interesting question, that one. Yeah, you possibly could regret saying, well, that was a bit of a waste, but at the same time, it could also be seen as an investment. Look, I come at career coaching from the basis of saying it's not just about getting a job, but getting the right job and getting something that's going to fulfill you. So in the event that you've actually got something that's really seriously going to fulfill you, that's where the intersection of the S, L, I, and M, and potentially P are in the SlimPack model. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we've got a link to the model broadly in the show notes, but also in your course content. It's also in your Career Clarity book if you choose to get that as well. So the long and short of it is that can you be in a state of regret, having talked about regret? Yep. But the last thing I want you to be is stuck for the next 10 years in something that you just can't absolutely have. Barry says you learn something every time you try something new, whatever that is. Absolutely. Particularly if you've got an open mindset, Barry, isn't it? And so having an open mind to things, and approaching life with a value of learning rather than the value of mistakes or risk, of avoiding risk is something there. I'd also encourage that to probably have the mindset, rather than hopping in and expecting from here on in that you're going to be employed long term from here on in. So take the example of the teacher of 17 years with a one institution. In that case, 17 years is a heck of a long time. I would put it to you that, and you've heard me talk about this in the past in coaching, but also in webinars, and that is that we are looking for long-term employability for you and for everybody rather than long-term employment. And so in looking at something, you may have more of a mindset saying, I'm going to try something out and have either a portfolio of different experiences simultaneously or have a contract for maybe a year or two or three or otherwise. For the younger people on today, and there is a strong propensity for people who are probably about 2 to 3 years into a job. If there's no prospect for significant change, what they'll do is they'll often just change jobs. So it's much more of a millennial, in inverted commas, millennial mindset as well from that perspective. So I would say from that side of things, it's probably a good. It's not something out of the norm from that side of things. Okay, so I'm hoping that today's helped you a little bit around thinking something through. It just helps you understand about testing those waters. A short story, if I can, and that is that I've done things in the past. I'm human, and I've made my own mistakes. Sometimes I look back and I think, geez, if only I'd been less impulsive and sought the wisdom of people who are already in an industry, gone down a particular pathway, learned, stood on the shoulders of giants, as they say. If I would have done any of that, then what would have happened is I probably would have made some different decisions. The other thing is that slide about not overthinking things, and that is that one about really getting some perspective, but trusting your gut. So I remember helping somebody recently who just did that. She had a number of options and she just couldn't make a head decision. And so what I ended up actually doing is asking her just to go sit quietly, let's call that meditate on it, whatever, and just to come back to me within 24, 48 hours. And she did, and she decided that that she would do that. How might you do that? And that is that I'm a big fan of a program called the Silver Mind Control. I don't want you to think about it being mind control, although that's what it's called, but it's the Silver Method, and it's actually about accessing your intuition. If you want to find out more about that, I am very good friends with somebody who is the accredited coach in Australia for this, and I can certainly recommend you to them. And they'll stage some fantastic ways of accessing your intuition as well. So hopefully you enjoyed all that. Again, if you want to get those books, we've got those links in the show notes. I'm emphasizing the books because they are great resources. Not everybody's going to get outplacement. So these are great resources for your friends, family, whatever it is, people that you know who may be at crossroads and may frankly just need something being done. Okay, I wish you well. Have a very wonderful Christmas. We won't be putting on webinars now until I would say probably February, early February, just to be on the safe side. If it's any earlier, we'll let you know through the usual communications. If you want to, please make sure that you get onto our LinkedIn page, and if you need some help with that, Sarah, you can put that up as well in the show notes. Participate in that, but I would say honestly, my gut feelings telling me we'll probably resume the webinar start into very, very early first week of February, just after the Australia Day long weekend. So in rounding today off, I want to wish you all the very, very best for the holiday season. Have a wonderful Christmas, happy Hanukkah, whatever you're celebrating. A happy New Year. May 2021 be one of renewal and happiness. We certainly need to have a better year than what we've actually endured in 2020. It's been an unusual one on so many different levels, and I look forward to working with you in the coming year. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and to a wonderful time together. May your career really take off in 2021. Bye.